Has this ever happened to you? You're on your phone and you start scrolling on Instagram and then you come across a random dude around your age and you're like, oh cool, this kid has done more in 18 years than I'll ever achieve in my life. They have a Lambo, a mansion, so you do the smart thing for your mental health and click on their profile to stalk them even more, causing you to enter an endless spiral of self-doubt, financial envy, with a sprinkle of fear of falling behind. After 3 hours of stalking this guy and his friends, you decide to put your phone down and reflect. And all this might stir some motivational juices for you to work harder, make more money, but more likely than not, you're just gonna feel like shit afterwards. That you feel like you're financially behind and all these 17-year-olds already have $300,000 in their bank accounts. But on the bright side, you think if you were ever in a boxing ring with these little rich shits, you kick their ass. And I feel like this too sometimes. Even though I'm a personal finance channel and I talk about money, I still get those feelings like I'm behind on the curve and I'm always looking for ways to improve myself financially. How can I reduce my spending? Do I deserve to buy that double cheeseburger or just stick with the single? Sure, it has its benefits where I'm being more frugal, I don't have to buy unnecessary things, but there's this constant financial war that goes on my head and it's very exhausting. But good news, if you are feeling financially behind constantly, there are 2 tricks to help you stop feeling this way. And these 2 tricks helped me so much in my life. I went to Vanderbilt University for college and thankfully on scholarship because no way I would have been able to afford that school. And when I got there, literally what I saw and experienced was one of the biggest shocks in my entire life. If a lightning bolt struck me right now, I'd be less surprised than I was back then. I went to public school my entire life, from elementary all the way to high school, and my high school was one of the most overcrowded schools in the entire country. It was over 200% capacity for decades, meaning that if the school was built for 100 students, the school jam-packed 200 students in there, like we were a can of sardines. Literally, you would be shoulder to shoulder when you're walking throughout the halls and you would constantly be touching someone. Just because there was no space, it just wasn't designed for that many students. So you can see I didn't come from a lavish, extravagant background. So I was completely floored when I found out. A study was published in the New York Times, I think, that showed that 1 in 4 students attending Vanderbilt University came from the 1%. And if you didn't know what the 1% means, 1% means they are the 1% of the wealthiest in the entire world. And that was shocking, just the class divide that existed within every classroom. And I mean, I kind of realized it when I saw students driving Maseratis and BMWs, embroidered clothing and other rich people stuff that they do and buy, but it was that statistic that really got to me. So in my experience, I wasn't comparing myself to some random kid I saw on Instagram who owns a yacht. I was literally comparing myself to literally 25% of the students in every single class who I knew they would be 100% fine financially if they didn't study a day in their life because they had networks and their parents would just pull some strings and get them a really great job afterwards. Long story short, yes, these 2 tricks helped me out a lot. First, let's actually understand why all this comparison actually happens and does it actually happen to everyone? This entire concept of comparing yourself to others is actually biologically hardwired into us, whether it be about how much money we make, how we look, or who has more fries remaining in your McDonald's meal. It's an evolutionary trait that allowed us as a species to advance from hunting wild ferocious cows to being able to order cow meat with the click of a button on Uber. Think about it, during the hunter-gatherer era, if you were raising corn and you see your neighbor Samuel, whose corns are better and bigger than yours, then you'll start to naturally think, gee, Samuel does have some nice big corn, how does he do that? Maybe I should improve my technique so that I can eat and sell my corn. All of this is called the social comparison theory, where we have the inherent need to evaluate ourselves to see how we're doing because of this one reason. Human beings can't define themselves independently, and the only way for them to do that is in relation to something else. And social comparison has only gotten more toxic in the past decade with the invention of social media, where not only can you compare yourself to Samuel, your neighbor, but you can also compare yourself to some spoiled rich kid in California who already owns a yacht. So this naturally brings into question, is the trick to just make a lot of money, belong to the 1%, and then we won't feel financially behind anymore? Let's imagine a parallel universe called Earth 2.0, where you got lucky, you found this multi-billion-dollar idea where you put hats on top of corn. You're wealthy beyond your wildest dreams, and instead of living in a shack, you now live in a penthouse in New York City, decked out with an indoor corn farm and a bed made out of corn, which in this world is super expensive. You have finally made it, and now you probably feel like you're on top of the world, right? Wrong, because now instead of your salary earning chum buddies, your friends are now the CEOs of public companies, B-list celebrities, and other people who are way wealthier than you. Just because you're making 8 figures a year selling hats made for corn, you can still feel financially behind, because no matter how rich you are, there are and always will be someone who is richer. Take Bill Gates, for example, inventor of Microsoft, probably one of the richest people in the entire world. Even Bill Gates is financially behind Jeff Bezos. By the way, Bill Gates, if you are watching, here's where it gets very interesting. Here are the 2 tricks that actually help you stop feeling financially behind Mr. Bezos. Also, if you're feeling generous and you want to donate a few $1,000,000 for these tricks that will definitely change your life, I'm totally open to that too. So firstly, we know that we're designed to compare ourselves to something or something else in order to improve and get better. Well, the trick is to stop comparing yourself externally. If you look externally as a comparison point and you see some rich 17-year-old on Instagram, you will constantly think, why can't I be wealthy like him? But what you're actually thinking underneath that surface level question is, why can't I be happy like him? Or why can't I be fulfilled like him? And that's where you're making the cognitive error that happiness or fulfillment can be purchased, which, fun fact, fulfillment and satisfaction is actually a state of mind no matter how many things you buy. But we're conditioned to falsely think this way because, well, that's just how our world and society operates. But the reality is you have no idea if people driving that Lamborghini is truly happy or miserable underneath. You can get a high-paying job, you can get promotions, you can win a lottery, you can do all those things. But unless you do this one thing, you will always feel like you're financially behind, even if you're making 6, 7, 8, 9 figures a year. Instead of looking externally for a comparison point, you should actually look internally. And let me explain, because it does get a bit complex. When you first start to look internally, then you're gonna start to have some real conversations about personal finance. Like, what do I need to make my life fulfilling to me, and what do I need financially to get there? And when you start to think like this, you'll start to set some internal benchmarks for financial success, because now you'll compare yourself to your previous version of yourself instead of comparing yourself to other people, because personal finance is not a one-size-fits-all approach. What makes your life fulfilling given your circumstances is not going to be same as what makes Rich Joe's life fulfilling. Therefore, you inherently would have different goals where you strive to achieve. When I say compare yourself to a previous version of yourself, what I mean is that you want to start thinking like this. Where were you at this time last year or 3 years ago? And chances are in that time frame, you learned a lot, you improved, and you accomplished many things since then. Think about all the things that you've done and then put that into a bucket. All of that is in the past. Everything you do moving forward would be put into this new bucket, and your goal is to fill this bucket with stuff that's a lot better than your old bucket. A very simplified example is, let's say right now, in the past year, you were able to save $500. That's in the old bucket. Your new goal is to beat that benchmark. So let's say your new goal is now to save $600 in half a year now. It's an extremely oversimplified example of setting your goals, but I think you get the idea of setting a benchmark internally that's better than your previous self, instead of setting a benchmark externally. And therefore, the next time you see someone's highlight reel of their life, of their success, you can remind yourself that the only truth you actually know is, I have no clue as to whether or not that person is happy or miserable. I only know me, and I know where I'm going. The second trick is going to require a bit more self-reflection. Sometimes when you feel like you're financially behind, this leads to us feeling like crap over our past financial mistakes, whether it be we didn't start investing early enough, we didn't save enough money. In the perfect world, none of this would have happened, but since we're in the real world, nobody's perfect and shit happens. But you have the ability to decide how to move forward from here. You can choose to feel guilty forever knowing that you can't change anything now, or you can come to terms that these things happened, you learn from those mistakes, and you avoid making them in the future. And now you'll put more effort in achieving these brand new goals. And if despite these 2 tricks you still feel financially behind, then this is where you pay very close attention. For many fortunate people, making more money is attainable. You could work overtime, you could switch to a high-paying career, you could start your own business, you could start a side hustle, you could suck up to your boss to get a promotion. But all these things have one thing in common. They all require sacrifices. You would have to trade your time, your lifestyle, your mental health for money. So knowing that, now you need to ask yourself, is making the necessary sacrifices to move up to the next income tax bracket, is that worthwhile to you? If the answer is yes, then awesome. Go out there, accomplish your goals, live your best life. If the answer is no, then that's fantastic too. You might not be making as much money, but you're gonna be a lot happier this way. And if you're anything but 100% content with your choices, then you always have the freedom to make changes until you reach a tipping point where you can accept the negative outcomes of your decision. What I mean, for example, is you decide to stay at home with your children instead of working overtime to make more money. When you're genuinely happy with your choices, then there is no reason to feel financially behind. Others who are financially better off just made different choices and accepted those sacrifices in exchange for money. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you smash the subscribe button and turn that like button into a beautiful beautiful blue, because here we're breaking down the complexities of finance. And if you stayed until the end, thank you so much. You guys are the real ones. Comment down below, corn with hats, so I know you guys are the real ones.